truth be known, I'm not a huge fan of SUVs, but I've always been a bit of a fan of the BMW X5 because it was the first SUV that really brought car-like levels of performance driving to a big high box. Now this new X5 is it's a little bit unfamiliar for me still. It's got this large, like 2-story high kidney grille, which is really in your face, like really in your face. And the taillights don't have that familiarity with me yet. It's going to take some time for me to realise that what's on the back of this vehicle is the signature look for the new X5. In profile, the vehicle still is undeniably a BMW X5, so that's a good thing. We're in the current top shelf version, the M50D. So it's not a BMW X5 M, it's the M Performance version. What you've got is a 3-litre inline 6-cylinder engine, which we're used to with BMW, and it has 4 turbos. 2 smaller ones that spin up nice and early and quickly, and 2 larger ones which do the majority of delivering the urge. And that urge amounts to 294 kilowatts of peak power. But because it's a diesel, we're mainly interested in its torque. This particular engine is now putting out 760 newton meters of torque, and because it's a diesel, it's in a relatively narrow torque band, only between 2 and 3,000 RPM. But that doesn't need to limit your enjoyment of the vehicle, thinking that you're on a knife edge of where power is available. Not at all. This 8-speed transmission, which is a full automatic transmission with a torque converter, does a great job of keeping this 3-litre engine right in that hot zone. So this car accelerates, remember it weighs 2.3 tons, but it accelerates from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.2 seconds. Now that's a full second faster than a Golf GTI and only 0.4 of a second slower than a Golf R, and it's a diesel SUV weighing 2.3 tons. It's also quite economical. 7.7 litres per 100 kilometre for the combined cycle is what the factory quotes. And in my experience of driving it in relatively subdued manner, it's going to deliver that no problem at all. It is a very economical vehicle for its size and for its performance potential. It's not cheap though. It's $177,900. But it is a pretty trick piece of kit. For instance, it's got 4-wheel steering, so the rear wheels actually move in opposite directions to the front wheels at low speed to help you change direction more quickly. At higher speed they move in the same direction so the car can change lanes more stably, I guess you'd say. The X5 has always been renowned for being a really good handling vehicle for an SUV. I can only imagine that this 4-wheel steering has enhanced that even more. So what I think we need to do is find some really curvaceous road and throw the X5 around it just to see how well it goes around corners. Wow, it's great. That's quite a sharp little corner back there. The SUV is very flat. I can hear my kit rolling around on the boot, but otherwise it's very quiet. There's a nice little growl from the engine. It's pulling up to 4,000 RPM before it sort of wants to shift. And again, another very sharp corner there. And I don't know, it must be this combination of M Sport suspension and 4-wheel steering, but for a big box that weighs 2.35 tons, it goes extremely well around tight corners. And it just fairly launches out of the corners with that great torque. As I say, 760 newton meters of torque from 2,000 to 3,000 RPM. So it's not a huge range that you've got that torque available in. But I think either side of that, like above 3,000 and below 2,000, it's still got enough to keep things very, very entertaining. So I switched it into Sport Plus mode. We get a little bit of extra exhaust noise, about as much as you're ever going to get from a diesel, so don't go looking to it for pops and crackles on downshifts, because they ain't there. The 22-inch wheels, they have a 275/35 up front and a 315/30 out the back, so massive tyres. But for all of that, the car rides very well. As I say, I'm in Sport Plus, which is the more aggressive of the suspension settings, and it's not at all a jiggly ride. Even at lower speeds or on very corrugated roads, it's still perfectly acceptable. There's no hint of it wallowing or rebounding unnecessarily. It just sticks to the road, does what it's told, goes where it's pointed, and there's a lot of urge through that accelerator pedal. I'm going to start driving with my own gear selection now, but because it's a diesel and you've got that peak torque just in that single 1000 RPM band, you kind of have to be looking at the tachometer and be prepared to be quite active with the gears if you want to have that 760 Newton meters of torque available to you all the time. So while it's fun to click up and down through the paddles, I don't know. I think the machine's going to do a better job of it itself, frankly. I wouldn't say it's become small and nimble and it shrinks in size, but it definitely belies its actual size and weight. It's a 5-seat configuration we're in. You can opt for the 7-seat configuration, which is $5,500 extra. But as well as those 2 extra perches, you also get air suspension all around as well. It's extremely well sorted. They've nailed it in terms of a big SUV that can really hustle, really hustle. It has gesture control and voice control, and that brings me to a couple of things which I think don't work so well on this X5. It's getting a little bit complex. For instance, gesture control. As I've been recording this video, I've had to wave my hands around to, explain things in detail, and that has sometimes started up the radio. It's turned up the volume. It's a 3-litre inline 6-cylinder engine, as we're all familiar.
What can I help you with?
You can help me by not interrupting me when I'm speaking. Thank you. It also has gestures.
Could you try again, please?
No, I don't want to try again. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the people on the end of the camera.
Please try again without background noise.
Similarly, if I say BMW every now and again, this lady turns up and she starts to speak to me. And
no server connection for naturally spoken destination input.
There you go.
Please say the name of the desired country.
The desired country is New Zealand, and I want you to go away, please, lady. So there's a few things like that that irritate because they're complexity for complexity's sake. This little cup holder, drawer cover doesn't really perform the way it would expect it to. It's a bit hard to lock and unlock, but underneath there are inductive charging for your phone and also hot and cold cup holders. Yeah, it's got all the fruit. The one thing that I think is just amazing, and I'm going to show you, is reverse assistant. What it does is it basically allows you to be an idiot backer and no one ever to know. Now I've set up a obstacle course on my driveway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive up the driveway, and the car will record that drive. It records the last 50 meters that you drive, and then when I get to the end, I can shut the car, go out and have a cup of tea, come out, I hit the reverse assistant button, and we'll see what happens. The car will memorize all the steering inputs and all the radar and camera inputs for the obstacles in the driveway. Okay, made it. Let's pretend that the car's been switched off and locked and it's even the next day. Get back in, start the car up, put it into reverse, hit the button, reversing assistant, and the car takes over the steering wheel. So now all I need to do is monitor the brake and obviously keep a lookout for obstacles that may have arrived since the last journey up the driveway. But I've got a very good display on the screen here. Shows me all the obstacles, distances that the camera is able to drive us backwards. We've got another 20 meters to go. Steering wheel's doing its own thing. And if something gets in the way that wasn't there, it'll let me know. I get little chirps, things really close. That cone was really close on the left rear there, but I'm not doing any steering, and the car is confidently retracing the tyre tracks we left on the way up. And now it tells me that 3.2.1, that's exactly where we started. Now, isn't that nice? So you really have to go out of your way to scratch your new X5. Right, the BMW X5 M50D in summary. Things I like how it drives, I like how fast it is, I like how well it brakes, I like how well it goes around corners, unbelievably well around corners. I like the quietness of its ride, the tranquility of the cockpit, I like the general ambience of the whole thing, I like the design. I'm not sure I like the grille, I'm not sure I like the taillights yet. Other things I don't really like too much. I think there's a little bit of technology overkill here. A million menus and sub-menus, so more tech levels than I'd be interested in delving into. But it's a BMW X5, and you know they're always a good deal of fun on an open road, and so I have found my time with the X5. Really keen to hear your comments on the video, what you think of the new X5 versus previous generation X5s. And also, if you like the content that I'm putting out here on CarNut.kiwi, please subscribe. I don't get paid to do this. I do this off my own bat. It's just a hobby. I try and bring some level of kind of enthusiasm for the vehicles I drive. That's why you'll only see certain vehicles on CarNut.kiwi. So if you like that thought, if you like that sort of philosophy I have, please subscribe to the channel, and let's see if we can keep on making good videos of cars that are kind of interesting, because life's too short to drive rubbish cars.